Hi everyone, I hope you had a really lovely half term. Today we're going to be doing some literacy work and we're going to be looking at a new book. Today we're going to be reading and understanding a fiction text, but it's going to be a different fiction text from Roald Dahl. To be successful today, we're going to see if we can use our phonics to read accurately. We're going to see if we can use other reading strategies to help us read effectively. We're going to see if we can find key words and phrases in a text to help us answer questions. And we're going to see if we can use evidence to support our ideas. So not just sort of making it up, not just having a good guess, not just remembering, but actually finding that information in the text and then going with it. So today we're going to be looking at this book. This book's called George's Marvellous Medicines. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about George's Marvellous Medicines. This is from the blurb, which is found at the back of the book. So it says, George Cranky is 8 years old, wondering what sort of mischief he might get into. George's grandma is a grisly old grouch, and George wants to teach her a lesson. And when Grandma's finished drinking George's marvellous medicine, she'll really have something to grumble about. So we're going to find out a little bit about this book. We're not going to start at the very beginning. I'm going to actually read an extract from chapter 2. And this might help you to think whether you want to read this book in the future, or maybe if you think this book's not for you. So we're going to have a look at chapter 2 together now.
Chapter 2 The Marvellous Plan. George sat himself down at the table in the kitchen. He was shaking a little. Oh, how he hated Grandma. He really hated that horrid old witchy woman. And all of a sudden, he had a tremendous urge to do something about her. Something whopping. Something absolutely terrific. A real shocker. A sort of explosion. He wanted to blow away the witchy smell that hung around her in the next room. He may have only been 8 years old, but he was a brave little boy. He was ready to take this old woman on. I'm not to be frightened by her, he said softly to himself. But he was frightened, and that's why he wanted suddenly to explode her away. Well, not quite away, but he did want to shake the old woman up a bit. Very well then, what should it be, this whopping, terrific, exploding shocker for Grandma? He would have liked to put a firework banger under her chair, but he didn't have one. And he would have liked to put a long green snake down the back of her dress, but he didn't have a long green snake. He would have liked to put six big black rats in the room with her and lock the door, but he didn't have 6 big black rats. As George sat there pondering this interesting problem, his eye fell upon the bottle of Grandma's brown medicine standing on the sideboard. Rotten stuff it seemed to be. 4 times a day a large spoonful of it was shovelled into her mouth, and it didn't do the slightest bit of good. She was always just as horrid after she'd had it as she had been before. The whole point of medicine surely was to make a person better. If it didn't do that, then it was quite useless. So ho, thought George suddenly. Aha, ho hum, I know exactly what I'll do. I shall make her a new medicine, one that is so strong and so fierce and so fantastic it will either cure her completely or blow off the top of her head. I'll make her a magic medicine, a medicine no doctor in the world has ever made before. George looked at the kitchen clock. It said 10:05. There was nearly an hour left before Grandma's next dose was due at 11. Here we go then, cried George, jumping up from the table. A magic medicine it shall be.
Okay, so what I've done is I've taken a little extract from that chapter that we've just read, and we're going to see if we can answer some questions together. Remember, we have to find evidence from the text to back up what we think. So let's look at the first question. The first one says, what colour was the medicine? So in the text, you're going to be looking for a colour, then read the sentence that's in it, and see if that makes sense. Oh, I've got it. Have you found it? It says, his eye fell upon the bottle of Grandma's brown medicine standing on the sideboard. So the colour of the medicine was brown. Well done if you got that. Let's look at question 2. How often did Grandma take her medicine? So we're looking for some sort of time frame here. It could be how many times a day she takes it, how many times a week, how many times an hour if she takes it a lot. Let's see if we can find that in the text. Oh, I've got it. I've got a number and how many times. Have you found it? 4 times a day, a large spoonful of it was shovelled into her mouth. So she takes it 4 times a day. That's a lot of medicine, isn't it? Let's look at the final question together. Did George think Grandma's medicine worked? How do you know? Ah, I think I know. I think that the answer is no, that he doesn't think that that works. But is that good enough just to say no? Of course not. We need to provide some sort of evidence to say how we know. So if I have a look at the text, and if you have a look at the text, it says she was always just as horrid after she'd had it as she'd been before. So that means that the medicine obviously doesn't work because she's just as bad after taking the medicine as she was before it. So James doesn't think it works, and that was my reason why. Let's have a look at what our task is today. So you're going to need to go back to DB Primary, and you're going to need to download the text and the questions. There's a bit of text from what we've just read, and then the questions, and you have to use evidence from the text to back up your answers. Make sure that you use evidence to support your answers, otherwise there's no point doing it. Once you finish that, come back to this presentation here, and we'll show you you're open to think about your self-assessment. So today, our objective was to read and understand a fiction text. I hope that you found that was quite okay. For our next step, it could be to use phonics to read accurately. If you maybe struggled with some of the words, it could be going back to practice your phonics. Using other strategies to read effectively. So where we can't use phonics, it's using other strategies like reading around the text to help you. To find key words and phrases in the text. So if you're looking for something, specifically looking for that key word, it's that skimming and scanning skills that you need. And to use evidence to support my ideas. Do you need to back up what you think with evidence from the text? I hope you had a really good lesson today, and I hope you enjoy learning a little bit more about George's Marvellous Medicines for the rest of the week.